You're listening to the Art of Floating podcast.
How exciting. Welcome to the Art of Floating podcast. This is our very first podcast, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be here along with my co-hosts. I've got Amy Grimes.
Hello.
And Lance Foss. We're going to be hearing more from them later on in the show here. But first, I just wanted to take a moment. I write on my blog. I've been writing for several years now, but this is the first time you've probably heard my voice unless you've met me in person. And I just want to take the time to say thank you. Thank you so much for supporting the blog, for supporting me. It's meant the absolute world to me and my partner, Brian. Whether it's the emails, whether it's saying hello at the Float conference, or even buying products on our products page, supporting us through Amazon links, it really means the world to us. And those emails and the questions, the support, it truly is what drives us and makes us keep posting. So thank you so much. But you're probably really curious what this podcast is about. And so I do want to answer that question first before we hear more from Lance and Amy. And also I'll get to why Lance and Amy are even on this show. Why does that make sense? And why is the podcast, why is it not just me talking here, but why is it a team effort? So what is this podcast? This is a podcast specifically for floatrepreneurs. If you know what that word means, we're talking to you. What is this podcast not? It's not a podcast for somebody who's just interested in floating. This isn't for somebody who's just looking to learn more about floating or delve into it. This is specifically for the person who's taken the leap to change their entire life by opening a float center. We're talking to the person who is about to open a float center. We're talking about the person who's in the middle of opening their float center, running it, wanting to refine it. This podcast is here for you. And we're going to cover a lot of things on this podcast. I'm really excited about what we'll be delivering for you. We're going to be talking about how to improve your float center, how to open it in the first place, increasing profit, better customer service, water maintenance, soundproofing, all the nitty-gritty stuff that's really specific to float centers, and also more general things that are specific to any business, not just float-centered businesses. We're going to cover all those things. We're also going to have guests on the show. It's going to be really cool to have people from the float industry, probably a lot of names that you'd probably expect, and then we're going to have people from the float industry that you might not expect, or people who aren't in the industry at all, but can definitely bring value to you for bettering your float center. We're also going to be bringing news updates to you. We're going to be bringing information that's going on throughout the float industry and making sure that you're on the pulse of what's happening as this industry is growing, because it is growing year after year and is growing month to month. And so we want to keep you up to date on what's going on. And I want to include you in this. What's been really cool about the blog is people posting on my posts. But beyond that, I get a lot of emails. Way more than the comments I see on the blog are emails asking questions, opinions, and you are very vocal over email. But now you can be vocal to everybody in several different ways. So first of all, you can find me on Artful Floating. That's the Art of Floating's Twitter handle. You can find Lance, and we'll cover this at the end of the show as well, but Lance at The Float Shack and Amy at Float Nashville. Also, you can go on to the blog now, theartoffloating.com, and leave voicemails. If you look to the left side of the screen, if you're on your computer, you're going to see a yellow bar, and you can click on that and leave a voicemail for us. Let us know what's going on with your float center. We'll have different topics that we're going to want to cover, and we want to hear from you. Why do we have 3 hosts here? Let's talk about that. The reason I started the blog was to help improve float centers through discussion and through bringing up questions. And I think there's a certain limit to what I can bring individually. I can talk to everybody, I can gain information, and I can share that. But if I bring in different points of view and people who are in different stages of their float centers, we're going to have much better discussions, and I think the listener is going to have a lot more to glean from everything. And we have just more experts in the room So without further ado, let me reintroduce everybody. Lance, Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure
Yay.
to be here.
Cool.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So first of all, I would like everybody to cover, let everybody in the audience know about your business. Where are you now? What's the name of your business? What does it look like?
Okay,
Lance?
yeah, welcome everybody. My name's Lance, and I'm coming to you from Red Deer, Alberta. I operate a float center called the Float Shack. We've been open just over a year now. Things have been going real good. We're running 2 tanks, and we've saw about 3,500 people. So our city, there's only 100,000 people, so we're one of the smaller cities to get up and going with a float center. But it's been real good. We've done everything ourselves, from construction to business plan to, all the ins and outs. We've took on all the tackles. So that's where we are. Is about 14 months in, and we're excited for the future. And we got some good things coming up, and we're excited to share our story with the float world.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's very exciting. I'm excited to hear more about that. Amy, how about yourself?
Sure. And Lance, are you alone? Is this your business? Is Float Shack all you?
No, I actually have 2 other business partners. I founded with another gentleman named Matthew DeRouge. This started from an idea in a kitchen to running a center, and we brought on another partner named Cole Stevens. So there's 3 of us, and we have 3 employees now. So 6 of us running the shack.
Cool.
Thank you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I always ask that simply because it's just myself and Mark, who's my business partner. And we finally we have now 3 employees, but it has been quite the adventure with 2 people. We have a 3-tank center in Nashville, Tennessee, in case you didn't know that by the y'all. We are in the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Nice.
And we have what I like to call a micro float center. We have 3 tanks in 1,100 square feet, a very tiny 1,100 square feet.
Wow.
We just passed our 2-year anniversary mark, so we survived 2 years.
Happy birthday.
Big celebration.
Nice.
Thank you. Big celebration. Big
Cool.
flotation celebration. And we're seeing a slow growth, but we are seeing growth. We're moving in the right direction. And so I'm okay with that. We are, like I said, in the buckle of the Bible Belt. This is very new to a lot of people. And it's a little slow growing, but we're getting the word out there. And the people who have floated have been really enthusiastic and spreading through word of mouth.
Nice.
How about yourself, Dylan?
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting to talk about more about the challenges of different cities. I think I'm really lucky to be in Portland, obviously. We're a float capital here, and we're also, a tourist city as well. So we have so many people coming in here as well. So let's see here. We have 3 float tanks. We have 2 massage rooms. We have an acupuncturist, a naturopath, 2 therapists, and a yoga center. I think that's all that we do. We also have a foot bath, which is really awesome. So you can soak your feet while you're here as well. But I think we currently have 30 employees. That is including LMTs and yoga teachers. But I think 8 actually front desk staff. And we've been open we're just coming up on 4 years now. We're about to have our 4-year anniversary coming up here. So that is super exciting. And when I say we, of course, I'm talking about Sandra Kalm, my now wife, which is really exciting. And let's see here. Anything else I should say about my float center?
Now, where did you start out? You didn't have all that when you started. What did you start with, Dylan?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was pretty incredible. We started out with 2 float tanks in a giant 1900s house. So it's been a long journey coming from that to where we are today.
That's a nice 4-year growth. I love it.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
It's been a lot of growth. It feels like a snail's pace day to day, but then when we look back, it's amazing how fast it goes. Lance, what were you doing before you opened your center?
Well, that's quite a shift.
I know.
I spent the last 10 years as a heavy duty mechanic in the oil field.
So that is a big shift, isn't it?
Yeah, like where I come from, Alberta, it's like the Texas of Canada. So there's a lot of oil field activity. Actually, the whole province almost evolves around the oil field activity, as we're starting to see right now. But yeah, I was a mechanic. Every day I got dirty. I got hurt. I pulled wrenches. I got cut. Always dealing with that side of things. And I thought I'd be doing it for my entire life. There's times in kindergarten where I go back and look at projects and I said I wanted to be a mechanic. But when I came upon all this, I realized that there's more ways to making money than just working with your hands and strength and being tired and sore every day. And that's how I was raised, and it sort of led me in the direction of relaxation.
Interesting.
What about you, Amy?
Okay, so I actually started out as executive director of a national nonprofit. And after 10 years of that and a few health-related issues thanks to stress, I became a massage therapist. And from there, it did seem more of a natural progression to the Float Center. But I've come a long way from my nonprofit years, actually. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. How about yourself, Dylan? I know a little bit about your past, but not a whole lot. What were you doing before you started?
Yeah, I was working in IT, and it was super boring. I didn't care for it whatsoever. I think a lot of people are totally fulfilled working in the IT field, and I absolutely didn't. It was a cubicle farm. It was for a Fortune 500 company, which sounds really glamorous, but really that just means you're a cog in the machine, and your voice means absolutely nothing, and you could be outsourced at any moment, and you see your friends disappearing because of outsourcing, and there's just money is absolutely the number one priority. So that was difficult for me, and I suppose that's pretty much where I was at in life before opening the Float Center, and just starting to date Sandra before discovering floating. Yeah, which probably leads me to the inspiration of why I started a Float Center, which is, well, let's see. I guess actually, I just kind of discovered in my head, it goes back a little bit further than I thought, which was working in the cubicle farm. I was listening to tons of podcasts. I would basically tune out of my job however I could because I didn't want to be there. And I worked long days. I was also on call, so I'd have to help with things after hours, and it was just absolutely killing me. So I would try to kind of find outlets, and podcasts were a great way, and Joe Rogan was probably the best one for me to find an outlet that he talks about really cool things that I could connect with, and he does freaking long podcasts, so I could listen to him all day long, or honestly it would usually take a few days to get through a single one of his podcasts, because I was actually doing a job during this time too, even if I was trying to tune out a little bit. But so
Sure you were.
Yeah.
You call it the Joe Rogan escape instead of the Joe Rogan experience.
No kidding. Seriously, that's very apt. So I was Joe Rogan escaping, and he would talk about his float tank, that he has one in a basement. And I think that's really common for a lot of people out there is they hear about floating through Joe Rogan, or at least my personal demographic. I'm 32-year-old male, and I was doing MMA at the time too, so I was probably his exact specific target. I looked into where a float center was in Portland, and there weren't any, but I did find a single float tank out of a guy's apartment. And I called him up, booked an appointment, told Sandra about it, and she said, hell no, you are not going into some dude's apartment, getting naked, and being chopped up into a million pieces. So I canceled the appointment, and just a few, and I heard her, it kind of made sense. It was a little weird, but I think just literally 2 months after that, Float On opened up. And as it turns out, the guy whose apartment I was scared to go into was Chris Measure, who's, in my opinion, kind of the godfather of floating here in Portland. He's been around for a long time working on float projects, and he happened to be co-owning opening this Float Center. They opened with a big Groupon, so I think it was Sandra bought a whole bunch of Groupons and brought us in to float. And to be quite honest, I had a very disappointing float. Joe Rogan pumps that up. It's such a cool thing. It's absolutely amazing. Alien symbology up in the sky, all this really cool stuff. And I laid in water for 90 minutes, and I got out a little frustrated, relaxed, but a little frustrated. and I had no interest in coming back. I was like, oh, okay, that's hype. Got it. Sandra signed up for their really cool art program where you do you get 2 free floats, or at least 2 floats in trade for a piece of art. So she almost was required to go back, but I think she was actually excited to. On her 3rd float, beforehand, she said, you need to come with me. There's something to this. This is really cool. I went back somewhat begrudgingly, to be honest, and I let go immediately and had a beautiful float experience. It was gorgeous, and it really impacted my life there forward, and also made me really further unhappy with my business life. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. On that drive home, I turned to her and said, why don't we do this? And she looked at me with this knowing face and just said, yeah, that's what we're doing. And pretty shortly after there, I quit my job and we started working on the Float Center. So yeah, there we go. Do you have a similar story, Lance?
I have a similar story, but I didn't end up marrying my business partner.
Hey, there's still time. There's still time.
Actually, as crazy as it is, we first found out about floating down in Portland. We were down there. We went down there for a hip-hop concert, actually. We went to Seattle first, and then we headed down to Portland. We've never been to either places. And there was just one day we had some free time, so we rented some bicycles, and we were riding our bikes around, and we actually stumbled upon Float On. And at that time, I couldn't put floating to really anything. My business partner, Matthew, he knew about it before that, but not much. So we got a little more information. We were only there for a couple days, so we never got a chance to float. But the whole drive back, the wonderful drive I've done so many times, a 17-hour drive to Portland, all I could think about is floating and or trying and wanting to try it. And we got back, we did our research, and we found a place that was 12 hours away, actually. So in Abbotsford, BC, a place called Cloud9.
Cool.
We did a 12-hour drive and drove to Abbotsford, and that night we slept in the 7-Eleven parking lot because that's what we do. And we floated the next day, much similar to you, in a guy's basement, actually. But we did it.
It was not a commercial center.
He had it done really nice. Like, he had a massage bed and some other things in his house. It was very well presented. But when we first pulled up, we're like, oh, God. We drove 12 hours and, like, I'm not doing this. I don't want to get in. But just walking up that sidewalk, it changed everything. And once we opened the door, it was very comforting.
Cool. Nice.
But we both did our first floats there. And my first float, there's a lot going on in my head. I couldn't let go. I couldn't relax. Much similar to what you said. I think there's a lot of hype behind it. Like,
right.
When a lot of these people on these podcasts are talking about their float experiences, they've had hours upon hours of floating, and they're relaying that experience to the world, which really can affect someone's first time float when they come in with all these expectations. But I had expectations.
You did have expectations just from visiting Float On, or had you been listening to podcasts as well?
Well, no, after I heard about it on Float On, then, you get the research going and you're watching all those YouTube videos and,
Totally.
All the same clips that were out, 3 years ago. There wasn't much, but people's experiences.
Yep.
So after my float, Travis had some tea waiting and he asked us, how was everything? And, what'd you think about? And I said, nothing. There was so much that went on, I couldn't put one thing to my experience. And it was after that where I decided I wanted to go actually deeper. And we went back home after, driving back and sleeping on the side of the highway there. It was about a week later, we're like, we got to do it again.
Wow.
And that was another 12-hour drive we had to do that we didn't want to go through. So we decided we need to bring this to our community.
Wow.
There's a lot more behind this than what we can experience in one float, and I don't want to make that drive. So we end up getting some family support and getting some funding, and we got a couple Oasis float tanks, and the first one went into my basement. And the first
became that guy.
became that guy. Yeah. The first about month and a half, we saw about 200 friends and family, and then it started to be strangers, and then it just started to get really weird because my neighbors were questioning why all these bags of salt are coming in these crates and all that. And about a month and a half in, my shower started to come apart. My laminate flooring started to lift. And
Oh my God.
we knew there's a lot more than just slapping up 4 walls and putting in a tub of water. And that's when the real challenge actually started. But the inspiration behind it was trying it, wanting to take the entrepreneurial route and get out of that greasy, dirty physical labor and challenge myself.
Wow.
Both of us wanted to be challenged. We were sort of bored with the oil field path and how mind-numbing that can be. And we wanted to help people. I think we're all in that for seeing that beautiful glow coming down the hallway.
Yes.
Yes.
And-
Live for it.
Yeah, my inspiration is just to help people and to challenge myself and do something new. What about you, Amy? What inspired you to get into the whole business of nothing?
Well, interestingly enough, mine also took place in a basement. I don't know what
Bunch of weirdos here.
I know, a bunch of
Oh my
weirdos
God.
that go
You're
to
listening to this
strangers'
again.
basements.
Very specific
so-
audience.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I actually floated for the first time 19 years ago now.
Nice.
And I was traveling quite a bit with the nonprofit organization. And I lived with chronic pain for 24 years. I explain it on a scale 0 to 10. I was at a 6 every single day, at least a 6 to an 11. And during my trip, I had a flare-up, and I was desperate. I found a massage therapist off the beaten path. I couldn't get one to the hotel, but I went off the hotel property, and I walked in, and I told this woman what was going on with me, and she said, I could massage you, but I don't think it could help you as much as something else that I've got going on. She's like, I have this tank in my basement. Now, most normal people would run,
Right.
like run fast.
Like me.
But when you live with chronic pain every single day, you will do anything to get relief.
So, can I ask you about your chronic pain? Like, what
Sure.
was there like a car accident that
No,
you never?
I
Yeah.
actually I went undiagnosed. I had a stage 4 endometriosis, which I've since had surgery to correct.
Wow.
But
Okay.
it was undiagnosed for 23 years.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So, fortunately,
Wow.
I'm very lucky, but I have a big empathy for people who live with pain every single day.
Sure.
So much pain that you're willing to go to a stranger's home and walk into their basement.
Right.
And unlike Lance's experience, it was not pretty. It
Oh,
was
wow.
it was
Interesting.
not a nice basement. It was down rickety steps. And at this point, I'm going, oh my God, no one knows where I'm at. I am in a city far from home. And the tank was not pretty. It was not a pretty tank. It might have been homemade. I can't remember that far back. But what I did remember is when I got out of that tank for the first time, I felt good. And I don't mean like I was okay to function. I mean, I actually felt good. Like for the first time ever.
Wow.
In years.
That's incredible.
And it was amazing. And I said,
How long of a float was it?
I don't remember. I
Okay.
think it was a longer. I think it was like probably closer to 90 minutes.
Okay.
It was a longer float because I remember being restless. I was restless. I couldn't let go. So the float itself was not a great experience, but when I got out,
Interesting.
I was like, holy crap, this is the best I'd ever felt. So I said, okay, can I come back tomorrow?
No way.
She I was like, she was real nice, and it was a little scary, but I made it out of the basement alive. She let me float 3 days in a row. And then I had to go back home to Nashville. And I noticed when I got back home, my pain level was at a 2. And if you talk to anyone in chronic pain,
Yeah.
we live for those days.
Huh.
I could go out to eat. I could do all kinds of stuff that I couldn't do before. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the tank in the base. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know what a float tank was. I was trying to explain it to people. And of course, every time you explain it, it makes you sound like you're crazy. So I looked on the internet, but at that time there wasn't a lot of information on the internet. So I tucked that in the back of my head, and as I traveled, I discovered Space-Time Tanks in Chicago.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
really the only other place I could find a tank. So skipping ahead to being a massage therapist, I opened a clinic in Mark's business, which is a baseball training academy, and I was looking at the reason he brought me
Who's
in
Mark?
was
Did we introduce Mark? Who Mark is?
Oh, Mark is I'm so sorry. Mark is my business partner.
Yeah.
He's the guy that I went through all this craziness with. And he brought me in because he wanted to find ways to help his clients from recover from injury faster, but also to prevent injury. And of course, my mind went right back to that experience that I had. I learned a little bit more about it. I learned about what it was by that point. And so I got this crazy idea. I'm like, let's make this happen. So I called, before I even talked too much to Mark about it, I called the health department because there was no other float tank in Tennessee that I could find. And I said, yeah, I want to start this float tank center. I'd like to put one in. And they're like, oh, that's fine, after I explained it to them what it was.
And that was the end of the discussion, right?
Oh, no,
and then
actually.
you opened your center?
Exactly. No. No, they said, that's fine. Here's the pool regulations. So as long as you can meet these, no problem. And I was looking through it. I'm like, but it says I have to have a lifeguard? I'm like, well, yeah. I'm like, no, that's going to be awkward. That's just awkward. I'm like, you don't understand. And that's where it started. At that point, I realized I was in over my head. But
what do you
my
mean
goal,
in over your head? Like just that this was going to be a battle,
I knew
basically?
this was not an easy thing. Yeah.
Okay.
This was not going to be, yep, let's go. And they're going to say yes. And we're going to go and put in a float tank. That's when I approached Mark and I said, hey, you know that crazy thing I've been talking about? I want you to kind of go in this with me if you'd be interested. And he'd never floated, so I had discovered there was the first float tank conference. It was the year of the first float tank conference. And he's real nervous about it, but I got Mark to come to the conference with me and to float for the first time at Float Shop.
Oh, yeah,
I actually
cool.
talked him
Yay.
into it for the first time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and he
awesome.
came out and he totally fell in love with it. And
he floated the open tank, right?
He did the floatarium.
Floatarium. Yay.
But he fell in love with your open tank.
That's right. I do remember he was infatuated with the open
totally
tank.
infatuated with your open tank. Yeah, he fell in love with it. We went to the float conference. I met you. I met so many people who were in the same boat.
Yeah.
And so my pain ended up helping other people. Like Lance said, that's what we're in it for.
Yes.
We're here to help other people, and we're doing it every day. So my pain inspired me to find out more, and now I get to spread the love.
That's awesome. That's
all
really
started tank in the basement.
Tank in the basement.
Tank in the basement.
Interesting. Is that how everybody's has to start out, with a tank in the basement? I love
Back
that.
even 3 years ago, that's really,
Yeah.
there wasn't much going on. It was tanks in the basement. Now it's, you can find a float tank within 100 miles of almost everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gone commercial.
Beautiful.
Sellouts. God. Nice. That's very cool. There's something I wanted to say about that. I guess just that all of us kind of cover different aspects of why it helps clients. For me personally, it was the introspective aspect of it, the fact that your ego can kind of step aside while you look inward. I feel like Lance was kind of on that same page. Is that right? And
Very
Amy,
much so.
Yours was, that physical pain dropping to a 2. It sounds pretty epic to me.
It changed my life. It changed everything.
It literally has changed your life. Sandra, similarly, she is a nurse. She has a master's in nursing. She was working as a nurse full time when she floated, and she just saw all of her patients who could benefit through floating, and she saw just all the pills that they're taking just go away. And that's what we're seeing now at the Float Shop is people who don't have to take their pain medication anymore, which is crazy. And I don't want to just say everybody stop taking their pain medication, but it's just something that we see time and time again, anecdotally, of course, but it's really cool to see. So that's cool that we all have kind of a little bit different places that we're coming from, but they're also similar. And yeah, I think the bottom line for all three of us, and definitely why I wanted you guys to be part of this team, is you guys are definitely coming from the place of heart and wanting to share this with the community in a very positive, holistic way. So I'm excited that we're all on that page.
Yeah.
And you were talking about your process of opening up and meeting Mark and all of that. And I obviously already had my partner. We were going in with into the business, and we had been together, I want to say 6 months. I don't think it had been a full year. Maybe Sandra and I had been together for a year, but we decided to start a business together, which most people would tell you is a really dumb idea, and they're probably right in a lot of ways. It has been absolutely brutal on our relationship. It's been so difficult. But But at the same time, I cannot imagine going to work and then coming home and needing to explain my day to somebody. Like, Sandra and I are in it. We're in the dirt together, and we totally understand where each other are at. Like, our hearts of what we're doing with our lives are completely on the same path together. So in that respect, it makes it absolutely worth it. The fact that every time we're eating dinner, it gets into float business talk, that's a little bit different, and we're working on that. Yes, you're able to disconnect, huh, Lance? Say goodbye to your business partner, go home, go to the rest of your life.
I wish I could say yes, but before we actually started the Float Shack, we were roommates. So,
that's so funny.
When you take the entrepreneurial route, you tend to not have very much funds to play with. So he's actually lived with me for about 4 years, and he's finally, we're starting to create that separation now, and he's moving to his place. But
you still live together?
Yes, yeah. Well,
Wow.
he's moving out actually today.
No way.
I think today's the last day. So, yeah.
Must be
but
why we're
it's-
recording today.
Got it.
I do say there's 3 of us in the business, but having business partners is much like a relationship, much like a marriage, except, well, there's no sex, but it's it's somewhat close. But going home and trying to create that separation was very tough for us, and that's something we had to. Communication was a big thing between the 3 of us, and we're still learning every day, but that's one of the biggest strides we've taken is learning how to communicate with each other.
Nice.
It is
My
tough.
my process was a little similar to both of yours. We had an idea, and we decided to go for it, and there wasn't much information out there at the
Right.
time. There's probably a lot more when I got going compared to you two, but there wasn't much out there. So
When did you open your business?
we opened last year, so it would have been
Okay,
July
wow.
of 2014,
That's
and we
so
started doing our
interesting.
research at the beginning of 2013.
Okay,
So there's
we opened in 2011, and we were doing research for, I would say, about 6 months before that, and, working on business plan and all that. But we thought there was no information out there. And 2 years, I know that's when a lot of information started going out there. For you to say that, that's incredible for me to hear that you felt like there wasn't much information. Like, what resources did you have, and what'd you do?
Well-
or how'd you figure things out?
It was a lot of Google, just a lot of searching centers and what they're doing and reading their testimonials. And then at the time there was a couple business plans out there. We never went with any of those business plans or anything like that. But we've seen them and seen what was going on with that. And then before we start construction or anything, we got to attend. It would have been the second annual float conference, and we did the workshop there, and that sort of
Nice, cool.
threw a ton at us, but
Yeah.
all 3 of us are actually mechanics by trade, so we have a pretty good grasp of how things work.
That's
and if they don't work, we'll make them work, and if we can't make them work, well, we'll build a new one. So
Sweet. That's
a
great.
lot of our background was able to put forward into building a float center, and we did absolutely everything from building a business plan to finding property to doing construction to marketing to building our website to pulling our permits to dealing with health. We did it all. And
Nice.
we learned a lot. None of us had construction
Right.
experience. None of us had marketing experience. It was quite the process, and that could almost be a whole series of episodes talking about how we came from point A to finished product, which
Yeah.
we're still not finished because
Right.
Right.
we have
There
about
are.
a little bigger than yours, Amy. We have about a 4,000 square foot space. And we only got 2 tanks in there, taking up about 300 square feet of that. And so
Wow.
we're set to expand, but we're sort of doing it slowly. We're trying to do it with what we earn and what we can invest, and trying to minimize the debt. So it's a little slower. It's a little more hard budget-wise, but it's a slow process, and there's a lot of pride going into it.
Nice. Good.
Everything's a lot of energy, a lot of love, but it's coming. So the process has been great, but it's been long.
And
You
you've done
ever-
some great work.
Do you ever
Thank
get
you. Thank you
burnt
so
out,
much.
Lance, or is it all just positive?
There's a lot of burnouts, but it's finding balance, and it's having to say no sometimes, because there's always things that come up, and being an entrepreneur, you're always so excited to do the next thing and challenge yourself and, make your finished product even better by putting in more work. But you have to find that balance. And, all of us being in the relaxation business, we sometimes, well, me personally, sometimes I forget that, and it becomes...
I think that's pretty common.
We talked about what we did before, but Lance, you're still working outside, so your float center isn't all that you do, is it?
No, I have a few things on the go. So I actually work
busy man
out of town. I still work as a mechanic 3 days a week. I try to get full-time hours in those 3 days.
Wow.
And then I do run the business. I'm usually there the other 3 or 4 days. And I'm also one of the co-founders and board members for the Canadian Float Collective, which is a nonprofit association to help forward the flotation industry in Canada and, well, I guess the entire world. Everything that gets put into the flotation world can be spread around. But
nice.
We just want to get everyone working together. And also this podcast. So there's a few things hardcore. And a couple side projects too. So right now it's just I've decided to dedicate 3 years of my life to doing this, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not even worrying about anything else. Just,
nice.
Just looking for tomorrow.
Amy, did you use money out of pocket? How did you and Mark do it?
Oh boy, how did we do it? Yeah, we did. We used most of it was money out of our own pocket.
Wow.
We did do a few personal loans.
Okay.
I am glad to say that we will be completely debt-free in about 6 more months.
Wow.
So not bad for 2.5 years. So we've been able to keep the debt on the low side, but we were not able to do it debt-free.
Sure.
Which was tough.
I hear you.
We tried. We bootstrapped as much as we could. But what happened with we were regulated. We didn't talk much about that yet, but we had 18 months where we had to fight out for some regulations, and it ended up costing us about 80% more than what we thought
due
to the regulation. It was crazy, but we figured it out.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, we'll definitely be covering that in a future episode. My goodness. Jeez. Just to answer my own question, since you guys shared, we did our fundraising or pitched our business plan to our parents. And so we got, I think we each put in, or Sandra and I collectively, I think put in $8,000 or $10,000, and then our parents helped with the other, I want to say $60,000. So that's how we did it. However, once we became experts, once we did all the research and wrote our business plan, people wanted to give us money. It was really interesting. Friends wanted to be part of this. They wanted to invest, and angel investors also wanted to invest, because while we did want to pitch to our parents, we were also researching how to get investors, and we found that lots of people wanted to be part of this. We didn't take any outside investment because we wanted more ownership of the company, but it was really inspiring to see that you can get investors in on this, particularly if you can sell the fact that you know what you're doing and believe in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and you brought... Oh, I'm sorry, Lance. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say I can relate to that totally, because it was my parents as well that we approached, and with our full business plan, and we didn't have enough to complete it. They did about the same amount as you, and we had to get a smaller loan for the rest. So it's almost the same story.
We'll definitely be talking about investors, loans, all that stuff in a future episode. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for sharing. For everybody who's listening, hopefully you got to hear a little bit about all our hosts here. And I think in the future there'll be a lot more interesting, more specific discussion on different float topics. But I also want to cover again community feedback. The fact that we want to hear from you guys, and not only do we want to hear about you and hear any questions in general, but this week in particular over Twitter, I'd love to hear, and Facebook, what do you guys want from this podcast? Lance, Amy, and I, we have a real, we have a good idea of what we want to do, but we also want to evolve it and grow it so that it's as valuable to you as possible. So if you just want to use the hashtag, or even just tweet Artful Floating, or post on the Art of Floating Facebook page, that'd be perfect. Hashtag, what was it? Was it AOF Startup? let's stick with that since I said it out loud. And again, you can reach me at Artful Floating. You can reach Lance at The Float Shack. You can reach Amy at Float Nashville. And then again, please leave us speak pipes. Leave us voicemails on the website. I think you can do several minutes of talking on there. We might cut it down. But let us know what you want from this podcast, and let us know of any questions you have. And if we can, we'll get it up on the podcast and play it for everybody and discuss it on the show here. And anything else you guys want to share?
No, I'm just looking really forward to where this grows and getting the community involved. That's one of the biggest favorite parts about the whole float community is everyone's so willing to work together, and we're just one more means for everyone to connect and, work more as a unified body than against each other like some industries. So I'm looking forward to meeting and talking to a lot of you listeners. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we are stronger together.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, guys.
Yeah, hopefully that's what this podcast does, is brings everybody together, brings everybody a voice across the country and the world. When I say country, I meant Canada first, and also America and the rest of the world. So with that, I think we're going to call it a show. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Lance. Have a great one, everybody. We'll see you next week.
You are listening to the Art of Floating podcast.